eye, but we're going to use some of the bundled strung peacock, and we're going to take about 3 fibers. Now this fly, you've got a 16 hook that's been given to you in your materials, and you're going to find that about 3 strands is going to be fine for it. But as you get more skilled, this fly, you tie it all the way down to size 24. Now, in hooks, that means the higher the number, the smaller the hook. Right now, we're dealing with the 16. Now, one of the most important things that you're going to learn, and one of the more frustrating things at first, is going to happen like this. This thread is going to take and push that material over, and it's going to kind of go like that, and you're going to have a tough time trying to get those materials to tie in there. First thing to do is lay your hand on your vise, just like this. And notice how I'm moving my fingers. This is a common practice when you first tie something in, is to use the vise to steady you. Now, notice right here my thumb and finger. I'm gripping the thread. If you grip the thread, then let go of it, you've got your material. And then it's going to go right on down. Now that's a good way to do that to first get started. Now as we go on through these lessons on these 12 flies, you're going to get more proficient at it, and you won't have to kind of grip that right in that. You're going to lay a little bit of slack. It's actually, as I go over like this, I throw a little bit of slack, and it's hard to do in slow motion. A little bit of slack, then I pull tight. And it'll look like this. So now we're going to go up to the front of the hook, and I want to just show you to the eye. We just have peacock on. We're going to add a little bit of hackle. Now I want to explain about hackle. Now we're going to go right to the eye. Now I'm leaving some room right here. Notice that room. That room is important because we're going to finish off a head. And if you don't finish off your head properly, what's going to happen is your leader's not going to be able to go through that. We'll be talking about how to make better flies as we get going. So now I'm going to take the thread and go to the back. Right here, if you notice, I'm right there where the end of the barb is. And we're going to get some hackle. And what we're going to do is we're going to get, one thing that you're going to learn right from the start. Now I laid out a piece of hackle and it disappeared. And it's called the black hole. You will develop a black hole by your fly tying area. And you might notice that I do have a bench to keep all my tools and stuff on. And I have a kind of a tower here, again, to keep more materials. Again, it's a gadget-oriented sport. You're going to find that you know, it's fun collecting all this stuff. But a good fly tying bench is a really important necessity if you have a wife, because they're going to want to get it out of the way. And if you put everything in it, you can just pick it up and move it. But I like it because it keeps all my tools organized. Now, this is hackle. Now, hackle is really the legs of a fly. It helps it float. Now, we use a hackle to imitate legs, even sometimes in wet flies. Now, this is important to understand the proportioning. Because the difference between a good fly and a bad fly usually is the proportioning of the fly. And if you noticed right now, I'm turning it. Now let's take a look at this hackle a little bit. If I take and I move my hand down the hackle, you see how it opens up and see those fibers? Back when I first started tying flies, we didn't have the quality of hackle that we have right now. We've actually been able to go in and genetically grow chicken feathers. Yes, these are chicken feathers. They actually originally came from fighting cocks, and not many fighting cocks left anymore, so we've had to genetically create that same stiffness and that same toughness to the bird. Now this one is called Grizzly or Plymouth Rock. It's probably the #1 hackle, that and brown, that you'll use when tying dry flies. Now what we're going to do is, on this particular fly, it is tied to be undersized. Normally, you know, when a couple of the flies we're going to be tying, we're going to be using normal sized hackle, which is 1.5 gap. This is a gap from the point to the shank. Right now, I'm just going a little bit beyond that gap because this fly does not have a wing, and it doesn't need to have too long a hackle, so we call undersize it. Now, as we get into the more wing flies, we'll talk about oversizing or properly sizing. So I want you to remember those terms. Now, this is the vein of the fly. See that vein right here? Some people call it a stem. Now, if you look on this right here, you can see that's really bright and dark. And if I turn it over, it becomes duller. Dull, shiny. Dull, shiny. Now, that's important because the shiny part to the back of the fly will create a more upright hackle. If we turn it the opposite way, which means turning the shiny side, not the dull side, to the front, it'll lay back more to the back. We do that on wet flies. But on dry flies, we reverse it so that the shine is to the back. Now, what we're going to do is tie this in. You can see I've got the stem. Now, what you want to do is put this between your thumb and your finger and lay it in and get this little maneuver right here. See how that's kind of fun. A little exercise here. Kind of tilt it in because that'll be important when you start tying your hackle in with wings. So what we're going to do is wrap it right forward, and we're going to go all the way to the front because this fly is really what we call a thorax fly. The body and the thorax is all in the same. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is pull the hackle up just like this, and we're going to take the peacock herl. Now, at first, I think you can see right here we have the hackle and the peacock herl, and I'm going to wrap one wrap behind. And this is kind of the only tricky thing on this fly that will be for you is one wrap behind that hackle. And what we got to do is make sure we don't change how the hackle lays. So we don't want it to be reverse itself and with the shiny side going forward. Now we're going to wrap, this is what the terminology is, wrap it forward. And as I hand it from one finger to the other, or set of fingers, thumb and finger, just like this, progressively coming forward. You can see it's kind of fuzzy. And we're going to wrap it right up. Whoops, you'll do that. You'll grab some of the hackle. Now, this comes your first important lesson. We're going to tie it off. Notice that I have my herl in my right hand. My thread is on the bobbin. Now, you can see why the bobbin's there. It holds the thread tight. Now, we have to come underneath this. We're going to take and pull the left hand forward and take the bobbin, switch hands, and bring it up and tie it down. Now, this is the basis of tying, what we call tying off. Now, I'm leaving quite a bit of room here, and you should be when you first start tying this fly. You need a lot of room there so you don't crowd your head right here. Okay, now I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to do what we call insurance wraps, just a couple of them. The next step is we've got to wrap the hackle. And we have a hackle plier, and there's a lot of different styles of hackle plier. This is one of the first ones that was ever done. This was just had two pieces of rubber that grasped onto the hackle, just like this. And then we put it between our finger, as you can see my finger there, and we just wrapped it forward, just like this, spacing it in between. Okay, now that's one way of doing it. And there's a variety of these types of hackle pliers. One may be like this in your set, where they have metal to metal clamp down, same thing. This is the English style. This has been around for over 100 years. Again, clamp down and tie it. But I prefer myself, and I use this. This is called a rotary plier, which will become absolutely essential when we start doing parachute flies. Believe it or not, most people think parachute flies are something that is for advanced tyers. But guess what? If you learn it right off the bat, it is so easy and so effective. And we're going to be learning that in just a few minutes. But right now, we're going to show you how to use a rotary plier. Okay, so we're gonna hold the hackle down. I'm just using making a half wrap. Some of you may find that you can wrap this just with your hand, just like this. Especially the long saddle hackle, the Met saddle hackle that it's in your kit. Now I'm going to clamp onto this just to show you. hackle plier and just get it right on the tip of the hackle. Now, one thing I didn't make clear, and I'm going to show you again. Now, let's go back and look at this hackle. What we do is we take the base here. You can see it's got some fluff to it, and what we're going to do is we're going to trim that, and we take that out. As you can see, it descends in order from here down, gets a little bit smaller, and so that's what we tie in. That's the base. This is the tip right here, and this is the butt of the hackle. Tip right here, butt. And so when we tied it in like this, that butt in. I just wanted to clear that up so we understand each other. So we've hit the end. The glossy side or bright side is to the back. And as you can see, we're going to start our hackle pliers. See how the angle is, and it rotates. And it's really easy. You just go right around and under the bobbin. And on this fly, you want to kind of evenly space it. It's going to take a little bit more hackle than if it was a woolly worm, because we want it to float on the surface. And we're going to go right up to the front. Now, as I get to the front, I'm going to wrap a couple extra wraps of hackle right in the front. Okay? And now what we're going to do is do the same thing as we did before. Now, this is where your hackle plier really helps you, holding onto the hackle. Again, I've got the hackle in my right hand, right here, and then we're going to go under, switching hands, holding with the left hand, pulling down, and wrapping our thread. Then I pull back a little on the hackle and continue to wrap it. We call these insurance wraps. Now, you got to be careful here, and then I'm going to teach you something right now that should stay with you for the rest of your life. And this is using my thumb. Now, what's going to happen? I'm going to take my thumb and use it to guide my scissors right in there and trim. Now, some of you are going to trim the thread, and you're going to cut it, and you're going to have to start all over again. But what I did is I took my thread, my thumb, and that pushed the thread out of the way, and I trimmed. See how I did that? Get it all out. Now, what we want to do is then wrap up so we don't get any of the materials in the eye, because any of the materials that are down in here blocks the eye, and you're going to be out on the stream, and you're going to be trying to get that leader through, and you've ended up blocking your eye. Okay, here comes one of the tougher things to learn in fly tying at first. And when I first learned, we had a tool. In fact, I've had this tool for 50 years. I want to show it to you, and I want you promptly to forget it. You'll see it in some of my fly tying tapes. It's called a Thompson whip finish. Don't even make it anymore. But you'll see Indian imitations of this. And it's got a little hook here. You can see right there, the little hook, and this little spring. Some of you may have attempted to make these work if you've tried fly tying in the past, and they're not as easy. Actually, on some of my other DVDs, you can learn how to do it, but the one to use and the easiest one to learn is what we call the Matarelli whip finish. And it looks a little funkier, but it doesn't have any spring. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you this one, and if you ever want to learn this one, we have it on many of our tapes. In fact, I think Scott will take you through it anyway. Here we go. What we're going to do is, and this is, yeah, come in tight, Leslie, on this one. Okay. Here it is. We've got this little bend. We got this little hook here, a little bend here. Two things: hook, bend, right in there, right where my thumbnail is. Okay, here's what's going to happen. The first thing we're going to do is put it in the bend like this. We're going to pull the bobbin until we form almost like a triangle here. We're going to reach up with this hook, grab it, pull it down. Now we form our triangle. See my thread right here? And we're going to go over by moving it and just wrapping it forward. As we wrap it forward, it adds tension to it, and we're feeding it a little thread. Now, we're ready right now. See that nice little triangle? Now look what's going to happen here. Boom, that flies out. Still in the hook, we pull it. There we go. We have our Griffiths Gnat. Now, isn't that a simple fly?